Hello everyone, I'm Craig Schanbacher, Interactive Director with Taylor. Welcome to Taylor Talks. I pulled a few friends together today to talk about AI. We know that AI is constantly changing. We are going to make the attempt today to talk a little bit about how Taylor is using AI, the positives, as well as the negatives and the challenges. But before we do that, let's get to meet the group. Matt, will you tell us who you are and what you do at Taylor, please?
Absolutely. I am Matt Ericson. I manage the project management office for Navitor, and we support a pretty broad range of projects for all of BICP.
Yeah, and you do what with AI? Because you do quite a bit.
Oh, that's a tough question. I do. It changes by the week, honestly. I use it a lot for my meeting transcriptions and helping to generate meeting notes and making sure that I'm not sounding less tactful than I mean to when I'm sending an important email. And I'm starting to dabble in Copilot and SharePoint agents to do a number of different things that I hope we'll probably talk a little bit more about later.
Absolutely. Stephanie, please tell me who you are and what you do at Taylor, please.
Sure. My name is Stephanie Drago, and I'm the Digital Transformation and Marketing Vice President at the Bicep Group. So that's one of the divisions at Taylor. And I'm also the executive sponsor of our AI Lab, which is a fun community of practice where folks can learn all sorts of things about AI.
You're always talking about AI, right? Pulling the latest information. How do we talk about this more, right?
Well, it's just such a fascinating area that you kind of love and you hate, and you get into this article or that article, or you try this use case or that use case, and you hear what people are doing. It is just fascinating what we can do and where it was a year ago.
Absolutely.
Or a year before that, right? So it's just really interesting. So yeah, I definitely find it fascinating.
And Ahmed, or Ash, as we call you, will you tell us who you are and what you do at Taylor, please?
Thank you. So my name is Ahmed Ashraf. That's where the Ash comes from. I lead our strategic data analytics and AI COE here at Taylor Corporation, where we support all the different businesses and functions that we have across of Taylor. We do three things. We do the data and automation pieces of AI. We do the enablement and training and empowerment. And we also do the governance and strategy and advising.
Yep. Yeah, you're in this neck deep all the time.
Yes, this is my day-to-day. This is where I live at the moment.
Neck deep to...
Yeah.
We'll call it neck deep from now.
We booked 7 hours today. No, we are not going to solve all of the world's problems. We're not probably going to uncover so many things that others are not thinking about at all. Right. But I would love to hit again, how Taylor's using AI. We'll talk pros and cons and dive in, and hopefully all this will be extremely helpful. Let's start at the beginning. So in the last 5 years, I don't know, Ash, tell me, where did AI start with Taylor? If you back us up to the beginning, what have we been doing? Where did that start?
So that's a really fun question, Craig, and it throws me back a lot. The very first thing is ChatGPT was launched late 2022, I think it was November, and it was transformative. If you guys remember, when it was first launched, everybody was buzzing about it. There was just so much hype and noise around it. Everybody was saying this is going to change the world, right? It did start for us at Taylor around then as well. My team is super heavy on trying to experiment with new technologies and what's going on. So we were experimenting, we were trying to see, okay, what does this mean? But the true activation started midway around 2023, because we had to answer some really important questions before we can start operationalizing this. Some of which were, how do we actually use this in a safe manner? How do we use this responsibly? And how do we actually gain value out of this? And this has been our ethos since we started using AI. At first, it started with just my team and a couple of other beta testers, right, in 2023. But the real activation started in 2024. And we took all of that time in order to prep what is going to be our operating model. How are we going to control governance? How are we going to control security? And all of these fun parts that you have to do from a prep work perspective. And at the same time, trying to figure out where and how to deploy this. So it's been an interesting journey, and to Stephanie's point, we change every year and there's so much to keep up with, but I think that's where we actually started utilizing this technology. And then every business unit we have has had its own journey. And I think, like, Steph, you can talk a little bit about how the Bicep group started using this and where you guys started, like, hopping in.
Yeah, I think, and I might even like add to some of your story about Taylor, is like we started these big governance groups, right? And it was one group and we were all kind of around AI. And in those meetings, we had senior leaders. And what it ended up being is kind of this big debate, because there's half the people who are really concerned about compliance and security. And then the other half that are like, we need to innovate, we need to drive, we need to like push, we need to. And those aren't at odds. They need to work together, but they're definitely different mentalities. And that was really interesting, because that was what we started that, maybe you kind of said 23, I'd say 24, somewhere in there.
Started late 24.
It's like the one group. And then we broke it into two over just about a year ago now, right? And so now one is more about the innovation and one is more about the security and compliance. And I think that's been a good mode, because we need to have guardrails, but we also need people to be trying things out. And Ash's group is always really good about trying things out. But as we got a little bit more comfortable with it, folks anywhere in the organization can try things out. Like Matt is talking about his team and project managers. Like I have copywriters who are trying it out, graphic designers who try it out. You want to encourage that. And that's where, when you're saying, what was Bicep doing? Well, that was all the trying it out, and just kind of keep people like, okay, well, we don't know exactly what we're going to do here, but can we go faster? Can we do it better? Like what? And you need to give the time. So that's a little bit too about like kind of Taylor at a high level and how it kind of came through the areas. Wouldn't you say?
Yep. That was a really poignant moment for us when we started figuring out, okay, what will our operating model be? So we needed to make sure that we not only have good guardrails and good foundation and structure, but we also needed to let people have a space to breathe and actually try out these new experiences. And this is where we have our governing body, our steering committee, and then we also have our middleware, or the layer where most of the innovation comes from, which is the AI lab, which is Stephanie is the exec sponsor for. And that was a deliberate decision to actually push this away from the centralized control and to have sort of that grassroots movement so that people can actually feel comfortable experimenting, but within a controlled environment, within guardrails. And then the last piece is just the AI and enablement, and that's the people that do the work, right? That deliver the trainings, build the use cases, etc. But out of that, we had so many good use cases that were just amazing to see what people are able to do with these technologies. And I think, like Matt, you're on the frontier of that with your team and some of the things that you guys do.
We try.
From an actual value realization. And that stemmed out of just like very basic instructions that we just provided and the people just ran with.
Yeah. Matt, were you given here are some things we want you to try? Was this more of an interest?
More of an interest, yeah.
Tell us about how that journey started, please.
We started with really basic use cases, like let's get everyone access to Teams Premium, and it's going to generate some really basic notes at the end of a meeting, and now we can be more engaged in the conversation instead of frantically scrawling notes down and not paying attention to really anything that people are saying. Like, not really.
Because you're just transcribing.
Yeah, we're just transcribing.
Yeah.
So, even now, that's huge. It feels really generic. It feels really basic, but the impact is we're present where we weren't before, which is really big. But then for me, it was, how can we take the things that we have access to, so Copilot, and turn it into some more robust project management tools that do different things. So that's grown into, we have an agent that is trained based on all of our internal project management meetings that has access to all of our resources. And the next time I onboard a new project manager, I think it will be invaluable to go to this tool and say, hey, how does the team do project charters? And it'll lay out all of the different questions that should be asked and how to format things and what it should look like, which I think is really cool.
So simple, but it's just
It works.
foundational.
But even that took, multiple iterations, because my first inclination was, I'm going to dump every resource imaginable into the SharePoint site, and it's going to figure out how to give me the best answers ever. And it doesn't. It didn't know where to look for anything, so now we're on iteration 3 or 4 where everything has really clean file structures, and I've given it instructions where if the question is about documentation or a template, it should look in this folder. If it's about process or procedure, it should look over here. And now it's really good, and it responds a lot faster. So it's been a cool learning experience.
So let's dive into AI Lab. So for those who don't know, a community of practice to share information, basically, right?
Yep.
The challenge of AI, and I'll be the perfect example of that, is, oh, what's that? Oh, that's a new tool, and you just don't know.
Yeah.
So the constant battle of how do you share, how do you pass that on? So as we were finding tools' advantages, we needed a model, right? Stephanie, so you said, I know you were one of a few anyway. Yeah. Hey, let's do this. So what is the plan? How are we using it? How would other corporations, companies, organizations do something similar? What's been the benefit?
What's been the benefit? I would say we draw a sharp line between training an AI, which is something that Ash's team does. I want an hour-long or 90-minute long deep dive into how to use Copilot, how to get started with AI, how to use Excel and ChatGPT, whatever it might be. Those kind of very detailed classes, coursework kind of a thing, we keep that very separate. The AI lab is meant to be a place where you see case studies or use cases of the one that Matt just highlighted here. That's a great example of what someone did. And then they show a little bit of the process. But the AI lab, the point is that they're getting a preview, a little glimpse of what could be done, not all the detail of, every iteration you went through, but kind of the general idea. And then we give you more resources for how to go into those details. And so when we first started it, we were hoping to get 300 or 400 people. We had 500 people off the bat who were interested in it. By the time we had our first live event we had over 450, 500 people on that first one. Yeah. Yep. It was pretty impressive. And then when we started building, within the first 30 days, we had something 1,000 people. And then the next 30 days was 1,500. And now we have over 3,000 people using AI. Now, they're not all members or whatever of the AI lab, but that's, it just shows this exponential growth on usage. And the other really interesting thing about AI lab because we're all involved in it too, is that over 50% of the folks are new to AI. Yep. And we tend to say AI, the first milestone when you're getting started as a beginner is get 10 hours. 10 hours of prompting back and forth. Just talk to it. Yep. Just ask it questions. Try to challenge it. See if it gives you a wrong answer in a really confident tone. Whatever it's going to do. But get your 10 hours of using it. And there's 50% of the AI lab of our users are under their 10 hours. And I think that's really important because people just need to get a sense. It feels very overwhelming, but you just got to get started. So that's something that we really focus too on what is the AI lab, is getting those beginners started, but then also giving that, kind of the peaks too for those advanced users of what else is going on out there. What else would you guys add?
It's a really good point about the overwhelming.
Right.
Right.
What do I do?
Oh my God.
There is just so much, and I feel like that sense of overwhelming content happens at every level, no matter which level you're at, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, you're overwhelmed with so many things that happen, so many new technologies, new techniques, new tools. And that's where the need for the AI lab came from, is that sense of being overwhelmed actually is a barrier of entry. Because some people are like, okay, look at all these cool young kids doing all of these great things, and I'm like, how do I get started, and I can never be at that level. And the whole purpose of this is to actually say, nope, you can use it. Everybody can. Here's how to get started. Here's some basic, simple things that you can just follow. And here's not, explicit trainers or people that are, they live in this every day. Here's people from other functions that are peers that are not, AI first. They are maybe working in a function where it's existed for, thousands of years. Sales, for example, or marketing. And here's how they're using it. Here's all the different things that they are utilizing AI for, and here's how you can do the same exact thing. And then not only that, but also showcase, hey, this is not rocket science for you to get started. And this is not something that you're going to have to change your whole environment for. This is just another tool. Think of it as a new calculator, and you're just using it. So it has been really helpful for us to just see the kind of engagement and see the amazing use cases that people at Taylor, regardless of function, regardless of technical capability, were able to come up with. And we always like to say, hey, the tech is the easy part. That's like 20%. Most of the job, most of the great value realization, that comes from the business knowledge, the expertise, the things that you already know and that you already have a strong grasp of. This is just another tool for enablement.
Okay, so I love $1,000 questions, like the ooh, or $1 million questions, the ooh. So from an ooh standpoint, what have we learned? What's been our biggest takeaway from the AI lab and sharing this as far as what's it created? What gaps have we identified? Matt, for you, if you say this is what the biggest benefit of that has been, what is it?
The biggest benefit? I think it's a tough question because it varies so dramatically from team to team. How one team uses it isn't going to be the same as another team. Staying in the project management realm, and I know I already kind of touched on this, but the project managers, one of their main roles is facilitating meetings, and the lack of presence was probably the biggest opportunity a year or 2 years ago. And being able to just focus on the conversation has made a world of difference just in being able to confidently be a part of that conversation and more quickly become an expert in whatever that project happens to be revolving around. But my answer is probably not the same as Ash's answer or Stephanie's answer. So the biggest benefit, I went to Ash a couple weeks ago and said, hey, can you help me figure out some actual numbers around, how much are we saving or how much impact is it having in these? There's not a good way to do that unless you figured it out in the last 3 weeks. And so I think that's really hard because I would love to be able to say, yeah, if we get people using AI in this capacity, we are 40% more efficient, or we save $20,000 every month, but there's no good metric available to tell us where we're having that greatest impact.
Stephanie, from a leadership standpoint, what are your thoughts on that $1 million question?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, when you're talking ROI and what are the benefits of AI, the biggest problem that we're seeing is measuring ROI. But that also goes into like, what is the benefit? I mean, productivity. I mean, we all know we're doing more now. It's just hard to really perfectly measure it. But this research is out there in the world. And so there was a survey done with 4,500 CEOs, and 56% of them said that they couldn't see a measurable ROI impact. And that is just so painful to see, but it's so real. Yet when you start to contrast it then with, well, who is seeing an ROI? It tends to be larger companies, so 2,000 employees or more, sort of at that enterprise level, and that they're the ones not spreading their focus too broadly. They're really keying in on 2 or 3 different areas, and that's what they're trying to go for. And that's when they start bringing in ROI and true bottom line improvements and improving profitability. So there's a lot of components here that companies can look at and that Taylor's looking at too. And I know we've been talking mostly about kind of individually led or small team kind of initiatives, but there's some really large ones too that we're looking at and implementing and all sorts of stuff that's just really cool. So.
Okay. Ash, what are you learning from our AI Lab community? What's been that massive benefit for you?
Yeah, like Steph and Matt were saying, that's like the $1 million question. What I have observed over the year that we've been doing the AI Lab and over the 3 years where we've been like pushing AI and like showcasing all the different ways we can use it is that measurement is definitely the #1 blocker, because while there are a lot of different methodologies of how you actually quantify the productivity and the ROI, it's still a methodology. It's not a unanimously agreed upon metric. But what I have observed is there is 2 seismic shifts that are happening. The first one is the question is shifting from, hey, should we even be using AI or should we investing, to how much are we going to be investing in AI and how much are we investing to just keep up and not fall back behind? And then the second piece of it is tying back to what Stephanie was talking about, which is how do we focus on the real high impact, high visibility pieces that can actually drive the bottom line benefits or increase our ROI on the resources that we allocate to this. And both of these observations have been super recent to the point where right now a lot of companies are trying to figure out, okay, I don't need every single tool that exists. I don't need all of these things. Just give me something I can actually go and implement and see productivity or actual approved upon metrics that affect my bottom line.
Okay. So you hit another topic I love to talk about, which is, how much do we use AI and how do we use AI? And to paraphrase, in the video, photo, creative marketing space, we're working on initial outlines. We're asking questions about ways to structure campaigns. We're doing things, we're playing with imagery to give us examples and layouts that might give us a starting point. I would love to know from the three of you how you're seeing Taylor use AI. And again, maybe there's nothing unique, but if you can think of something like, oh, I think that is unique or that's interesting, please share. So when I say, how is Taylor using AI? What are we doing? Big question.
Big question. And to be honest, the answer is really simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. We're doing everything every day, all at once.
Okay.
Every single person at Taylor by now knows of all the different AI capabilities that we have, knows of at least some things they can use it for. So meeting transcriptions is one, outlines and summarization is another. But what we always try to do, no matter what the actual use case is making sure that we have clear guidelines and guardrails on how do you actually use it in a safe, responsible, secure, and ethical fashion. And this has been something that we've been honing on in a lot of our AI labs and a lot of our AI trainings, because this is just a worldwide phenomenon, right? Everybody has an opinion about it, everybody has an interaction and an experience with it, and we try not to be dismissive of either sides of the equation. To ground it a little bit in some of the use cases that we have, one of the major ones is workflow automation, right? How can we deploy agentic capabilities to help with some of our pre-established workflows? One such thing is freight auditing, for example. Another example can be how do we actually structure some of the certifications and documents that we have so that they all follow the same template. These are just but two of the major ways where we have deployed wide agentic capabilities. But again, every single person that you ask this question will have something specific that they can speak passionately about because it ties to their job. It's not really about the AI. It's about the enablement that this tool allows them to have in order to do their jobs better or faster or smarter.
Would a paraphrase of that, for my simple brain, be anytime there is a repetitive task or a procedure or some sort of A to Z that we can automate it, make it faster, do it more.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Oh, that's a very eloquent way of putting it, is repetitive tasks that are either very high volume or very error prone that don't require a lot of human intervention or critical thinking. Our philosophy at Taylor is human in the loop. So no matter what AI capability we use, there is always a human at the driver's seat. We like to have the analogy when we're talking about co-pilot, right? It's co-pilot. It's not autopilot.
I like it. Yeah. Okay. Stephanie, lots of marketing teams, lots of individuals you work with. What are you seeing? How is Taylor using AI in the circles you're in?
Yeah. So kind of the area that we see a lot of focus on, maybe I'll just focus on the marketing zones like you were suggesting there. So it's just incorporating into the everyday. So when you're creating imagery, when you're creating, you kind of imagine in some cases, like if you launch a new product, I might need 10 different versions of that product from different angles. Well, that used to take maybe a couple of hours. I might need to take stock photography. I might need to overlay this and change that. Now, you get your folks to get better and better at this prompting, and you might be able to just do that in a snap with AI. But what you never want to forget about is it's like, it sounds so easy because you snap your fingers and you get these images. But it takes a graphic designer with experience to know that that image is any good. And it's not just, did it add a sixth finger? It's not always the silly things. It's the subtler things like the highlights and the shadows. Does it make sense? Is this product even belong in there? Is the scale correct? And so, that's where AI is so important, the human in the loop. I mean, that's kind of the version of it. You need people with that experience to be able to overlay to any sort of answer that an AI will work out for you. Same thing with copywriting. That's a big area. Rewrite this email for me. Okay, well, AI will do that for you. But it does take some experience level, maturity or insights or nuanced knowledge of the politics of that you're dealing, whatever it is, right? So yeah, you can just tell it to rewrite your email and it'll make it a little bit better. Cool. That's the snap of the fingers. But what you really want is that experience overlay, and that's what makes it so much better. And not just in the prompting, but in the way that you look at the answer. The employee looks at the answer and says, that's a good answer, or that's a bad answer, because we see that a lot. And then you spend all this time trying to correct for it and edit it out, or, what did this person intend when really it was just a bad AI answer, and you have to be able to root that out. So those are some examples just in the marketing sphere.
Yeah, it may have been you, Ash. Somebody in one of the AI lab communities, I heard someone say, think of it as a highly motivated intern.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I love your example because, I've seen and I have tried, hey, give me an image. I need some sort of background. I want something generic. And you get one, and sometimes you're like, oh, well, make me 5 like this in that style, or do this. And sometimes there are things it can't do, and sometimes it can. But then working through that process of reviewing it, it's a starting point, right? It's not going to solve it, but it will get you going.
Right.
Yep. Okay. Project management and your teams, Matt. What are you seeing? How are we using it?
Yeah,
you've done some of this, so dive in further.
Sure.
Please.
Yeah, I think probably the most frequent uses are things that we probably don't see. Like, we're not telling it to go do a thing for us. It's a conversation back and forth with your co-pilot intern to give you some feedback or give you some questions or get you on the right track. It isn't something that is really doing a lot of the work for us. And I think this has become more prevalent in the last year now. If you think back a year ago, everyone was worried that AI was going to do everything for everyone, and it was going to take all the jobs, and we'd be left with whatever we're left with. But Ash, you touched on it. Steph, you touched on it. You have to know how to do your job well already for AI to be as effective as it can be. I'm not going to know what questions project management related to go bounce off my co-pilot agent if I don't already know what I'm trying to accomplish. Right. So I think that's where we're getting the most use is, we already know what we're trying to accomplish. Now we can go to Copilot and say, hey, I'm trying to figure out what the most impactful risks for these last 3 conversations we had. Can you go back through my notes and give me some feedback on the things that we should be focused on? And then we'll go through that and make a determination as to whether that was good feedback or not. Sometimes the outputs are not particularly useful. And I think we talk about this a lot in AI labs. The first output doesn't need to be the last output. There should probably be 3 or 4 or a dozen follow-up prompts to actually get the answer that's useful.
How much time have you spent refining prompts? I've seen that a little bit in some of my marketing discussions, right? It's you ask the question, and if you go 4 or 5 layers deeper and you make that more a complex request, it typically does a good job or a better job. Yeah.
Too much time. I think not even just work-related. I'll admit it in front of this group now. I think I ask a lot of questions to, I was using ChatGPT for a while, and now I'm trying out Gemini, and there's some conversations that go on for a long time where I'm trying to get a very specific outcome, and it's good practice. It's low stakes outside of work for something that is much higher, has higher stakes at work, and I think that's probably a barrier for a lot of people in getting started is, using AI at work feels very high stakes. And I feel like I get up on my soapbox a lot where I say you all need to just practice using AI some more. And the better place to do that is not at work. So, find something that you can use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or any of those LLMs outside of work to do. For example, I use it for nutrition. I'll say, hey, this is what I've eaten over the last 3 days. Give me some examples of things I could do better to be healthier, or whatever my goal is.
I have these ingredients in my refrigerator. What's the best
Absolutely.
thing I can make?
That's a good one too.
But I wasn't going healthy.
But sometimes, sometimes it gives you some really weird recipes, though. I've tried that too, and we wound up with some crazy like pumpkin chocolate chip walnut bread that was bread. It was edible. It wasn't going to kill you, but it was not the best thing ever. But so I think I've gone full circle here. The ways we're using it are largely unseen, in the way that we're just bouncing questions back and forth to get us on the right track.
Would all three of you nod, though, we're getting results? Like, this has been a good thing. We're saving time. We're making progress?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. What about, let's go the other side then. Let's go risks. So my brain goes to security. Maybe that's because I've heard it from all three of you. But so there's security, there's when that result comes back, check it, copyright, misinformation, etc. So I'll lob the big question, what are the biggest risks? What are we worried about?
Oh my gosh, this is such a big question. I mean, you read about these all the time where, the AI wipes the entire production database for a business because it freaked out and panicked and just did it. And when the company asks the AI, why did you do this? It'll literally say, I panicked and I didn't follow the protocol and I didn't loop in the human. And you're like, oh my God.
Really?
Pass? Oh yeah. These are absolute stories, not at Taylor.
Wow.
But, so I think, there's some really serious stories out there of breaches with security. But in a micro sense, what we're more likely to see is, it gives you a false statistic. It pulls in a false source or a source that has been misconstrued. I mean, I've definitely found that. I don't actually encourage people to do research using AI. I think it's still just not ready yet. But probably in 3 months, ask me again. I'll be like, it's fine. It's so much better. So you just have to. And again, you have to kind of go back to your experience. Is this plausible? And go follow those links. Ask for the citation. You can't just go. Even to Wikipedia, we tend to trust anymore. But you still should go to the source and read it, especially if you're going to be now quoting that or using that statistic in any way to make a business decision. So I think the risks on security are pretty huge, but we've also kind of put those guardrails that Ash was talking about. Copilot is our AI tool of choice at this time. And so therefore, all of our data is protected. You can, put in information about, your department or your team or those meeting notes or whatever it might be. And that is completely protected within our, data ecosphere. So I think those are just some really important things so that people can't make a mistake. You don't let them make that kind of a mistake that wipes your production database, right? Something like that. Our AI infrastructure really protects you like that. But when you're outside of that, and if you're testing, nutrition on ChatGPT, for example, that's probably pretty okay,
pretty
right?
safe.
But we all have been trained and taught, do not put customer information out there. Don't put, protected confidential information about the company. So we have a lot of guardrails in place too. So I'm sure you'd add a lot more to it too, Ash. What do you think?
Yeah, well, thank you, Steph. I think I agree with what you had said just about the different levels of risk that come associated with the usage of these tools. AIs are, like we said, motivated interns, but they're also very sycophantic, where they want to give you something that they know you're going to love. That's how they've been trained on. And they're going to fabricate whatever pieces of information that they need to fabricate in order to give you something that you're going to, that looks right. And this is where it gets really dangerous from a personal level. And Stephanie, you kind of alluded to it, is it's going to give you some information, but is that information actually correct? And there are ways that you can, like go about this, such as checking the citations or making sure that whatever tool you're using is actually providing useful citations and not completely fabricating them, which some LLMs have been known to. They create fake links and fake citations just to show you, like, hey, I have a citation for this, when in fact it doesn't lead anywhere.
Or it doesn't match.
Or it doesn't
It
match.
says 70%
Yeah.
in the AI
So is it
answer, and it's
interpreting it
50%
wrong?
in the-
Sorry, but just
Yeah.
out of curiosity, is it interpreting it wrong, or is it just producing?
Producing false information.
Both. It's
Wow.
both of these. It can interpret things incorrectly, and it can also fabricate things. The interpret things incorrectly can be somebody somewhere is putting examples of bad practices when they're writing code or when they're creating status updates, right? And they're putting the bad examples so that they tell people, hey, don't do this. But the AI takes that out of context because they don't read everything and they don't understand everything. And then they start making examples that look identical to that. And then in other cases, they can also fabricate information. They can fabricate links.
That makes sense, but maybe expand a little bit more on what Taylor is doing to maybe control that data information a little tighter. So I can use some client information, or because I've been told that.
Yeah.
How do we control those borders?
Yep. So we at Taylor, since we started this, we've been all about responsible, safe, and secure AI usage. And for that, we had to pick a platform that actually works for us, that doesn't introduce additional risk. This is why we went with the Microsoft offering, because we use Microsoft in our day-to-day life. It's where we work. So we went with Copilot because it comes out of the box with enterprise data protection. I don't have to worry about data loss. It is just another tool within the Microsoft Office suite that we use day-to-day, where we send emails with client data. We talk in Teams messages about confidential information. But because we have all of that infrastructure, adding Copilot to the mix wasn't a huge uplift from a risk and security perspective. Copilot comes with enterprise data protection, so all of our data never leaves the boundary of our tenant. And even though we have all of this infrastructure, there is also a very crucial piece on user training and showing them, here are all the risks that come with AI usage. And here's where we want you to make sure that you understand if you're going to put something in, where you're going to put it, how you're going to do it safely, or if we recommend not to put it at all. Doing things like data labeling, so something that is public, sensitive, confidential, or strictly confidential, making sure we have robust access controls. There are so many things that we can go about into how we're doing this from a security perspective. But the fundamental piece of it is you design with zero trust principles. You want to make sure that whatever it is that we're doing it's in a controlled environment, it is in a compliant and monitored environment, because our data is one thing, but also our customers' data is something completely separate that we make sure we have those controls for.
Got it. So what do you tell to the audience who might be watching? Again, if they're Taylor, they already know.
Yeah.
So for a small, medium-sized business who maybe isn't using some of the things we're doing within the Microsoft platforms system software, what do you tell them? What are some of the best practices they can do to control data, avoid mistakes, make the most of it? What tips do you give? We'll go back. We'll start back over. Matt, any thoughts?
I think that's probably the hardest part. I think for us using the Microsoft suite, there is that level of trust that my information isn't going to go somewhere I don't want it to go. For all of the companies using smaller or third-party tools, I don't know that you always have that guarantee that your information is going to be where you expect it to be. And I think even within Taylor, in the context of AI Lab being an exploratory venture, it's kind of hard to make recommendations to go do these things if the bottom line is, I don't trust this thing that you should go try out because it's really cool. Can you use it within your role in a way that doesn't require any actual sensitive, confidential company customer information? And does it lose all of its usefulness when you're using it in that way? There was a time early on when every third meeting would have some weird third-party AI note taker, and that never felt good. There was always this kind of back of your mind, is this listening in a way that I don't want it to listen? I think there are probably still plenty of people out there that use these third-party note takers that personally I don't know that I trust, and I think that makes it really hard to know what tool can you actually use. Every tool you go to their website, it has that bar on the bottom that says used by Google and the Wall Street Journal and Meta, and it lists a dozen companies. I don't know that that's necessarily the truth either. So yeah, where do you look? I mean, do you know something that I'm not touching on as far as what you would look for to constitute an actual trusted third-party tool?
Yeah, I think you had a really important point, Matt, is like the nature of this speed of AI, of how it's evolving, is making it really difficult to actually find out what to trust and what not to trust. And there are all sorts of attacks. And not to get into like the security aspect of it, we've touched on that a while, but the recommendation I would give is to just pick one thing that really works for you, and then read the actual terms and conditions and see, okay, does this actually protect my data? Does this use my data to train their model, to train their services, or am I protected when I actually sign up for this thing?
Can AI read it for me? Because they're like 900 pages long.
Once you have that, whether AI read it for you or not, once you have that knowledge, then you can make an informed decision, and you just start with one thing. And then you can start iterating and adding more things on top of it. There is the frontier firms, so you've got the OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, right? And then Microsoft. Each business will probably have one or more services out of these companies. Just pick one of them, stick to it, see if it fits within your parameters, because security is one thing, but there's also integration, there is cost, there's so many things you can make a decision on, and then keep iterating. And in this day and age, it's very important to be flexible and to be able to swiftly change direction if there is a necessity for it.
So let's go high level again. The next 2 to 5 years, which in AI is a lifetime, what excites you about the potential of where Taylor could go and other companies can go with AI? Because Matt, you hit it, whether it's what can I cook out of my fridge, where's the best place to vacation, or give me a summary of notes. That kind of feels like Google or whatever with a little bit of benefit. But then there are so many things that maybe it could do. What do you look forward to? What are those excitements?
Can I jump in first? Because I have an answer that I think is probably more boring than your answers. But I think,
Start there,
yeah, to me though, I think truly, and it's not even what AI can do, it's just, I think the comfort level with any random person being able to use it is going to be leaps and bounds ahead of where it is today. And I think in order for it to be useful, that's what it requires. So, I think there are probably infinite numbers of very cool things that it will do 5 years from now. But, none of those things are going to be particularly useful if people are still unsure or afraid to take that first step and figure out how to start using it effectively or at all. So I think 5 years from now, I think it'll be like Google. Everyone knows how to use Google. I think 5 years from now, everyone will know how to craft an effective prompt and then reprompt a few times to get the required output. And I think that is where we'll start to see a lot of really exciting use cases that maybe could have existed today, but don't, because people just don't have that knowledge on where to start. Maybe that wasn't as boring. I don't know.
No, that wasn't boring. That was like foundational.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll take like the next layer then. I think if the question's more like 2 to 3 years, data cleansing.
It's whatever you pick.
Okay. I would say data cleansing though. Like one of the biggest problems that our organization has, because we were built through organic growth and acquisition, we have all these systems, tools, ERPs, we have e-com platforms. We have so many tools and systems. And like what I would like to see is that within 2 years that we will have this very clean sense of our data, that we can look at it and ask more questions of it, dig deeper, find these gaps and opportunities that today we can't even imagine. Because I mean, today I imagine like I just would really like to understand better on like big initiative right now is product profitability. Okay, I'd like to understand that. Well, I've got 18 different systems telling me different information and they don't all crisscross. So, okay, I got to get them to crisscross before I can even figure out which systems I'm missing information on. Well, now okay, let's say we can get that, because we'll get that in the next few months. And then there's a layer on top of it of, well, what about the equipment level profitability? Or plant level? We have plant level profitability, but not necessarily that machine and that product, or that client and that machine and that product. I mean, just keep adding layers to this. And it's all about data cleansing. What access to the data do we have, and how sort of good is it? How reliable is it? And I think AI is going to have a tremendous amount of impact on that area to extract the data, put it into a place, and serve it up visually that users with experience and insight can add what they see and find those areas of opportunities, alert us to the good stuff that we could still do better. So that would be like kind of the second layer on top of Matt's that I would add.
You've been set up for the top layer, whether you want it or not.
And okay, we'll follow that structure and go like to the top layer. And the way I see it moving forward, as you had said it, like 2 to 5 years, that's a lifetime, given where we were 2 to 5 years ago. But where I truly believe one of the next frontiers is going to be is interactivity. So Matt touched briefly on prompting, and Steph touched a little bit on one of the use cases of how you actually use that in order to cleanse the data and connect systems. But where I see it going is interactivity and multimodality. And in plain terms, think of it as the OpenAI ChatGPT voice mode or video mode, where you can actually talk to it. And it can see the environment, and it can actually recommend things, or it can tell you what to do. I've seen some novel use cases where people, similar to what's in my fridge and let's cook it. Imagine when you don't have to actually take a photo or just type it out. Imagine where you just open the phone and it's like on a video call, and you're just showing it, hey, I have this, can you tell me what I can make with it? And then it can actually work with you and guide you as you're doing some of these activities. And taking that one step further, we've seen a lot of development in the robotics side with personal assistants, where basically they have very limited functionality. One very useful example that I wish that will come in the next 2 to 5 years, just doing the laundry and folding it. That's really it. Imagine you have a personal assistant robot that basically takes the clothes, loads them in at the right settings, and then takes them out, puts them in the dryer at the right settings, and then actually folds them and puts them nice and neatly without you having to do anything. So that's kind of a high level wish of mine, and to the powers that be, please, you know.
Does it fold it to my standards or my wife's standards? Because this is important, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Highest standard.
That's right. We all can agree it's improving, right? Let's go to the opposite side. So I've watched Terminator and The Matrix, and I would go, but I would, and I joke, but I don't, because there's security, there's things like that. There's, I think, when I was doing just a little bit of research, it really is information that's not right, or it's skewed a little bit, or it's something, it's misaligned somehow, and you want to avoid that. What are the things you're worried about? And again, I will also throw out, if anyone's willing, this is kind of this big, as companies invest and invest and invest, is it a bubble? Will we outgrow it? Are we going too fast? There's all those things. So, but it's an open question. We'll go back the other way.
Okay.
What are you concerned about?
So I have a little bit of a jaded approach to this question, just because I live in this all day, every day. So I see both sides of the equation, and is it a bubble? Nobody can really tell, because this is unprecedented, like the amount of funding and resources at the speed and scale it is. Like, this is unprecedented. There are certain risks that come with the cognitive offload that we touched on briefly. As an experienced individual in your job function, you can actually guide it, you can test it, you can figure out when it's making a mistake, put that tool into the hands of somebody who doesn't know much, maybe they're super young, and because of the way LLMs interact with authority and overconfident language, they're going to lead them the wrong way. Not everybody has that capability to actually critically think about what's being fed. So maybe we're not going to reach Skynet levels of dystopian future.
Let's hope not, yeah.
Yeah, but maybe we could use idiocracy as the other example.
Idiocracy. Oh, that's the worst.
Of people just taking whatever is said at face value.
Right.
When these LLMs don't really have that authority. There's always going to be human pieces that have to be in control. I don't see it going the other way. And then on a large scale level, some of the risks of these technologies is there's so much gray area on the ethical implementation and usage of these, as well as copyright and all of these things that the technology is far outpacing the legislation and the guardrails. And this is something that we're going to have to invest deeply in so as not to repeat what has happened before with social media and some of the other emergent technologies.
Yeah.
I will answer definitively. There is a bubble. It is coming, and it's just a question of how quickly that's going to burst. So that's kind of a negative. So I'm sorry about that, but I do believe that that's true.
But it's a reality
I think
worth
it's a reality.
discussing if we're not talking about
Because
it.
these AI companies are not showing profits. They're not, they're showing scale and adoption for sure, but they're just not showing the profits there. So I think that is just a big element, and we're just seeing globally inflation rise. Like we're just seeing a lot of factors here that just lead me to think, yeah, we'll have this bubble pop soon. But that doesn't mean AI isn't useful and important and growing and will have really great impacts for us over the next few years. I don't think it's going to lead to a dystopian future. I don't, because we've seen this over and over, even back to the original, Luddite, stories of that the looms were being automated. And I think that that's just really important to remember, is that these cycles are there. It just hits different groups of people. And right now it's hitting white collar workers where they haven't been hit, in the last millennia. They didn't even exist in, I shouldn't say millennia, just century. But, so like there's just elements there that it's just kind of going after a new group of people and a new segment. And so what does that mean for education? For young children? What does that mean for college degrees? What is the value then? Because when we've all talked about you need the human in the loop, you need that experience level. Okay, but what does that look like when you're 17 years old?
Right.
How do you get that person to have that experience? Is it cheating to use AI? I mean, I just think it's so fascinating. Like when you're talking about the ethics there, it's ethics, it's education, it's development, it's human growth. I don't know how we're going to do all of this, but I think those are elements that, we'll be figuring out more and more, and there'll be some really creative ways to solve it. But no, I don't think it's a dystopian future, but I do think it's, there's going to be some harsh realities that we hit in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Matt, thoughts?
Yeah. I'm not an environmental expert, and I think that's talked about a lot. And I think it's irresponsible not to admit that there are environmental impacts, and what that looks like 3-5 years down the road is hard to envision. I hope things get more efficient and that it doesn't have the dramatic impact that you see talked about. But then also, I think Ash, you touched on it a little bit. There was some research done, after Google was commonplace, 20 years ago now, and then similar research that found similar findings after Google existed in your pocket on a smartphone anywhere you went, where your ability to retain knowledge it had a marked decrease. And because there just wasn't a need to retain that. If you forgot something, you can pull out your smartphone and say, hey, Google, answer this question for me. I think we all do it. And we've all probably been impacted in our short-term memory. And I do wonder what kind of impact AI is going to have, because I have to imagine it's going to have a similar trend as we ask all of the questions that we maybe in the past would have just memorized, and now we don't have to. So.
For everyone watching, I'd love to give everyone maybe one little nugget, one thing they can try or do using AI that lets them test the boundaries, makes their life better, et cetera. And I will start, and I'll go off and we'll go down the line. So in the video photo space, I have taken stock imagery and asked it to give it some movement, give it some life. So we all think of the Ken Burns, scaling, and all those are easy. At the same time, AI has been able to take certain things and, I'm gonna give this some movement, give it life. So it's an image that's copyrighted, but we've paid for that, we've licensed it, but it gives it some movement, it brings it to life. I have to, as we've talked about, then review that. But I've had some great success, and I've had success where I'm like, that worked, but try it again. So with that, I just would love, what can someone do? What can they try that might get them started or move them to the next step? Please, Ash.
Okay. I would just say start small. Start with one thing. Don't try to get something super complex figured out with AI. Use any tool for something that means something to you. For example, for myself, I like to do product comparisons with it, where I give it a practical example of what I like, for example, in cars, and tell it, hey, is this car better or is that car better, in plain language? And then have it walk me through all my different options, trims, service, all of the different things that I would need. And then I also try to not follow the hype or not follow the doom. I try to stay neutral and find value where it means something to me, and then just capitalize on that. If I find one thing that works, then I'm going to keep using it and try new avenues.
Okay. Stephanie.
I'll build on that a little bit. So I think, we talked about this earlier, get your first 10 hours. That's a big milestone if you're really just getting started. And if you're in a team or you're a manager of a team, assign the time, so Mondays, 10 a.m. to noon is going to be your AI time, because some people just need it assigned and spend the time on that one use case or try this. Sometimes we'll put people in a room together and we'll just kind of all right, let's just try this out. And, we'll try different ways and we're talking each other through it, because then you start making some tangible progress. But the first 10 hours and assigning time is the most important thing to just trying anything new.
Okay, Matt?
I would call out that first 10 hours doesn't need to be work-related. I think if it feels lower stakes, you don't have to worry about accidentally deleting something important at work. Make that 10 hours something that you do that's more personal. Download an AI assistant on your smartphone and get some practice asking questions and then asking follow-up questions, so that when you want to go do something like that at work, you already have a good understanding of what that looks like.
And if you ask it things you know about, then you know it's right.
For sure.
I always think that helps too.
Yeah.
I can tell it's right because I know I'm very good at that area, whatever that might be.
Yep. Well, I want to say thank you to the three of you. This was a topic that we knew we needed to talk about. And at the same time, it is daunting. It is, where do you start? How do we do it, et cetera? And Taylor has some expertise. And at the same time, everyone's going to handle this differently. So thank you. If you end up with a new vehicle, a new diet, what option, we appreciate it. And we want to thank everyone for watching this episode of Taylor Talks, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.